Welcome to my channel, where we discuss everything and all things politics, economy, and development in Nigeria and around the world. Based on popular demand, I want to talk about the Igbo phenomenon and, in particular, about Nigeria's first billionaire, Sir Louis Ojukwu. His interesting life, his interesting story is what we're going to talk about. And you will learn how he was able to know that he could become financially independent through side hustle before side hustle become an end thing. I'm sure if you go to YouTube now, there are so many channels, thousands of channels, teaching you how to be financially independent. And one of the things they taught is how you could become financially independent through side hustle. Sir Louis Ojukwu discovered this decades ago, and through side hustle, he became financially independent and eventually emerged the first billionaire in Nigeria and the richest Nigerian in his time. Let's go and look at the interesting life of Sir Louis Philip Ojukwu. Philip Ojukwu was born in 1909. He attended government primary school at Saba, and when he finished from government primary school at Asaba, the only secondary school that was existing in eastern Nigeria at the time was the Hope Wardell Training Institute, Calabar. And Philip Louis Ojukwu headed to Calabar, where he passed out from Hope Wardell Training Institute. He passed out in 1928. After that, he moved to Lagos. He has nothing in his pocket except his dream to succeed, to make money. By 1929, he got a job as a lowly clerk in John Hot's. While he was in John Hot, he discovered a side hustle. How did this happen? Sir Louis Ojukwu discovered that many of the Igbo people that were coming to Lagos to buy tires, because he was a sales clerk selling tire in the office of John Hot, where they sell tires. He discovered that when they come to Lagos, they also buy textiles. They don't only buy tire and go back to Odisha or another part of the east where they come from. They buy textiles. Ojukwu discovered that textile is an intent. And before I forget, this Ojukwu we are talking about, Sir Louis Ojukwu, is the father of the Biafran leader, Dame Chukwuemeka Ojukwu. Now, Sir Louis Ojukwu discovered that those who are coming from Onitsha and other places in the east, when they come to buy tires in John Hot, where he works, they also buy textiles. He discovered that textile is a moving business. With the meager saving he had, Sir Louis Ojukwu traveled down to Onitsha and set up a textile shop. And that was born. What was born was Ojukwu Stores. That's what he named it. And put his relative there. And then moved down back to Lagos, where he was working in the office as a sales clerk for tires. in John Holt. Louis Ojukwu discovered side hustle before side hustle become an end. And it is through this side hustle that he became financially independent and eventually emerged a big shot that even John Holt himself put him in their board of directors. By that time, he was already his own man. He has been made. He was already a made man. So, while the side hustle was going on, the business was booming for him, the textile business in Onitsha. So he kept on moving textiles from Lagos to Onitsha. And he discovered that he used to spend a lot of money in transportation. Ojukwu decided to go and buy a second-hand truck, so that anytime he buys textiles to move to Onitsha, to the stores at Onitsha, they will carry his goods for him, and then they will carry other people's goods. And that was how Ojukwu Transport was born. Ojukwu Transport was born. And he went into transportation business. And by the 1930s, let us not forget, I need to say this, it's very important. Ojukwu went to Lagos after he finished secondary school at the age of 20. By the time he was 30, 10 years later, he was already dominating transportation in East-West Road. And by the late 1930s, Ojukwu Transport alone has about over 200 trucks. Over 200 trucks. Ojukwu Transportation alone. That was how big he had become. And by 1939, the Second World War has broken out. And because Ojukwu has so many trucks, I told you, he had over 200 trucks. The British government have approached him and said, we want you to give us some of your trucks so that we can use it to transport weapons and other equipment during the war. Ojukwu agreed. He gave them all the support they needed. And by the time the war ended in 1945, the British government, Queen Elizabeth, honored Sir Ojukwu for his role in the war and made him a knight of the United Kingdom. That's why we call him today, with all due respect, Sir Louis Ojukwu. He was knighted by the Queen. He was knighted by the Queen for his role in the war. This man went on to do so many things. He was the biggest investor in Nigeria. He was the biggest investor in any way you look at it. That was why when Nigerian Stock Exchange was formed, he emerged the pioneer president of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. He was the first president of Nigerian Stock Exchange, Louis Ojukwu, the first president of Nigerian Stock Exchange. Today, people like the richest man in Africa right now, Aliko Dangote, has been president of Nigerian Stock Exchange, but the pioneer, the first person to become the president of Nigerian Stock Exchange is Sir Louis Ojukwu. He was the richest man of his time. And according to the Forbes Africa estimate of his worth, if you put it in estimate of his worth at the time, Forbes put his estimate of his worth at the time when he was the richest man in Africa, in Nigeria, when he was the first billionaire, they put his estimate of his wealth at about $4 billion at that time. So he was a man that was ahead of his time. And to show you the enormous wealth that he commanded, when Queen Elizabeth came to Nigeria in 1956, the colonial authorities does not have Rolls Royce with which to carry to chauffeur the Queen around. The only living Nigerian in the territory of the colonial authority of Nigeria at that time was Louis Ojukwu. He was the only one that had a Rolls Royce. So Louis Ojukwu volunteered his Rolls Royce and his driver to chauffeur the Queen around in 1956. And if you are in doubt, you can go and read Frederick Forsyth's book on Emeka. Frederick Forsyth was a British journalist who covered the Nigerian Civil War. He is also a celebrated author. He has written hundreds of books. His books have been turned into movies. Frederick Forsyth. He wrote a book on Ojukwu. That's the son of Sir Louis Ojukwu, the one that led the Biafran War. The son of this Louis I'm talking about. Ojukwu himself, when he was studying in Oxford, the son of Louis I'm talking about Dim Chukwuemeka Ojukwu. Frederick Forsyth wrote that his father bought for him in London Rolls Royce when Ojukwu was a student in Oxford, and recruited a white driver that was taking Ojukwu to school as a student. That was how rich Sir Louis Ojukwu was. He was able to provide a Rolls Royce for his son to be chauffeured to school at Oxford. That was how rich he was. And even today, in today's Nigeria, I doubt how many people can be able to do that for their son or for their children. But he did it. That to show you an example of the enormous wealth that he commanded, to the level that he was able to provide chauffeur-driven Rolls Royce for his son. So you can therefore see that it wasn't strange that he was the only one that had Rolls Royce in Nigeria with which to carry the Queen around when he came to Nigeria. And he was also a major player in politics. He even got elected to the House of Representatives and was a major financier of NCNC, National Council for Nigeria and Cameroon, which Zik was the leader. He was the one funding them. He was a major financier. He was using his wealth to fund NCNC. And that was why when in the independent election of 1960, after the victory of NCNC and Co., they offered him the position of the Minister of Finance. But Ojukwu was not interested. Sir Louis was not interested. The position was eventually given to Okotiebo, who became the finance minister. So you can see this man emerged the richest man ever in Nigeria, the first billionaire in Nigeria, and he touched a lot of lives. Izuchukwu Motors, you know about Izuchukwu Motors, you know about Ekenedri Chukwu Motors. Those were his drivers in his Ojukwu transport that eventually went on their own and became transport moguls on their own right. This man is the man who laid the foundation of the dominance of people of Nnewi in the motor business. He was among those who laid the foundation. Today it's taken as a given that Nnewi people are good in motor spare parts, motorcycle spare parts. But who are the pioneers? Who are the people that laid the foundation in all this transportation business? It is Sir Louis Ojukwu. And it's not only that. If you look at transportation industry in Nigeria today, transport industry is largely dominated by people of Southeast extraction. he was the one that laid the foundation for the Southeast people to see that, look, this is a gold mine transportation business. And it's not only in transportation business. Ojukwu, Sir Louis Ojukwu diversified. He diversified into oil and gas. That was why he was once the chairman of Shell Nigeria Limited. He was chairman of the board of Shell. He was chairman of African Continental Bank. So he has his hand almost everywhere. He was the man that opened the eyes of other Nigerians on the potentiality of this country in terms of business. This man achieved a lot. And as I told you, he was a pioneer in discovering that you could become financially independent through side hustle. He is the man that epitomizes the success from side hustle. Because while he was still working with John Hurt, he discovered a side hustle through which he became financially independent and went on to become the richest man in Nigeria at his time and the first ever billionaire in Nigeria. And Forbes recognized this fact that he was the first ever billionaire in Nigeria. And how did he do it? It is because he saw opportunity in side hustle and he followed it. Today, as I said earlier on, there are tons of people, thousands, hundreds on YouTube teaching people how to become financially independent through side hustle. But this man discovered side hustle before the internet. He discovered side hustle before many other people. And he went on to live a life of luxury because this man really enjoyed himself as one of the richest people that ever came out of Africa, because at his time he is considered the man who broke records, things that were reserved, the kind of business that you think that only Lebanese, only the whites could be successful. He became extremely successful and he showed the way. And that's why if you look at his acquisition, he has so much properties in Lagos. The former JAM office in Lagos was built by Sir Louis Ojukwu. It's his personal property. It was his personal property. It was initially seized by the Nigerian government because of the civil war and all that, but it was eventually returned to the family. He has so many properties. He died a very wealthy man. He died in 1966 in Nkalagu, in present-day Ebonyi State. But what you cannot take away is the fact that he was the first billionaire in Nigeria, and he lived a legacy of entrepreneurship. And as I told you, what he discovered is now being the intent in the world, that you could become rich through side hustle, and that he epitomizes the success that could come from side hustle, because through his side hustle he became a man of his own and even became a major shareholder in John Hurt and become part of the board of directors of the company that initially employed him as a lowly clerk selling tire in the tire department of John Hurt. That is the man we talked about. He is part of the Igbo phenomenon we talk about. Thank you for watching this video. And if you are new to my channel, you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel, hit the subscription button, hit the notification bell. When you subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell, anytime I have a new video, you'll be among the first to know. God bless you. And please don't forget to like this video, because when you like it, Google will rank it high and recommend it for more people. Meanwhile, the Igbo phenomenon, secrets of the enduring wealth of a people, is already in Amazon. You can go to the link, you can go to Amazon, You can buy it. The book is there in any way you want it. There is paperback of it. There is hard copy. There is the ebook version. Go to Amazon so that you get the details of the Igbo phenomenon. Thank you, and God bless you.